Hey, Michael Matt here. You tired of those annoying ads cluttering up our YouTube videos? We are too. Start watching our show at the totally ads-free remnant-tv.com. I'm a traditional Catholic, so all my life we've been in this war. And back in the 70s, when I was just a boy, it looked like it was hopeless. I would say it probably looked about as hopeless as it looked to the Vendeans early on, 1789, 1790, 1791, 1793, when Charette and some of the big generals start dying. And it seems hopeless, absolutely hopeless, right? But the thing that's so important to remember is the Vendeans kept the faith. So people say, well, the Vendeans lost, the revolution won, and it was over after that. But what I always say is, well, then how do you explain Saint John Marie Vianney? How do you explain Saint Teresa, the little flower? How do you explain these great saints in France? How do you explain this if the Vendeans truly lost and if the revolution truly conquered? Well, the point is, Christianity is always going to be in struggle. So the Vendeans were sacrificial lambs. Most of them died, but we're still telling their story. And their story is still echoing all across Europe, even to this day. We're still talking about these heroes. It just made a movie about these guys because they kept the faith. So I would say that we're at a similar moment right now. The faith is actually getting stronger, I think. And I say back in the 70s, it seemed dismal. It seemed like this is all wishful thinking. There's no indication. But I just came back from a pilgrimage. First of all, I walked for 3 days with someone by the name of Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens is not a theologian, so I'm not trying to say what we need to do is sit at the feet of Candace Owens and learn our faith. I'm not saying that. But Candace Owens has become emblematic of this fatigue factor, that people are tired of secularism. They're tired of being told lies. They're tired of, quite frankly, religions like Islam, where everybody in that particular religion has something to believe in. And what do we believe in? Trying to get our pronouns right? What is it? Killing babies? That's what happened to our religion? What happened to Christianity? So there's sort of a natural and human reaction going on right now to this war on religion. Part of it is just simply human. People are saying, you know what? I want to believe in something. I'm tired of this. I don't believe in secularism anymore. It's leading to death and ugliness and euthanasia and abortion and world war. It's pointless. It's useless, right? So there's a human urge, yearning for something more. And I think somebody like Candace Owens and Russell Brand and all these people who are moving over, the Tucker Carlsons, people who are, really talking a lot, even guys like Joe Rogan, suddenly talking about God, talking about religion. Okay, that presents an opportunity for those of us who consider ourselves defenders of the faith, who consider ourselves soldiers of Christ, no matter how inadequate. That's what we want to be. This is an opportunity for us. So just having walked this pilgrimage, again, the reminder of people like Candace Owens, who's got a tremendous following, who's now willing to stand up and say, Christ is King. And I watched her walk the entire pilgrimage. This is a tough pilgrimage. This is a 3-day pilgrimage. You walk 25 miles a day. You sleep on the ground. It's hard. It's very taxing. The masses are all in Latin. Most of the rosaries are in Latin. There's a lot to learn, in other words. So we see people like that who are interested. And then, to cut to the chase, this pilgrimage has gotten bigger, larger, more influential every year. You arrive at the Chartres Cathedral, and you have incredibly, I don't know how to stress this enough so people will understand, because you have to almost juxtapose it the way it used to be, where we were all looking for bishops and leadership, and it just didn't seem to exist. And all of a sudden, even after Traditionis Custodes, you come 20,000 people, mostly young, most of them, anybody over than 20 is going to struggle. I can tell you, I struggle on this pilgrimage, and I've done it 30 years in a row. They're going to struggle, and you get to Notre Dame de Chartres. It's packed out. The entire city of Chartres is closed down. I'm right in the middle of the town, for example. They put the luggage this year for all the pilgrims' luggage. It absolutely choked the entire town from the train station all the way up to the cathedral. You couldn't miss this event. And then inside, you have the former head of the CDF under Pope Benedict XVI, a cardinal of the Catholic Church, Cardinal Gerhard Muller, offering the traditional Latin Mass to 20,000 people. Of course, the vast majority of them are outside in the rain. Inside the cathedral, you have les enfants, the children. It's chock full of kids and families packed out in the cathedral. And I always think it's so beautiful. They raise their voices during the creed. Et unam sanctam catholicam et apostolicam ecclesiam. One holy Catholic and apostolic church. This is such a powerful moment that people tear up just watching it. Little kids. Now, there's no way that can be undone. What happened just a week or so ago in France? It can't be undone. You had entire generations of children who are experiencing this and who understand they've had a little bit now, a little microcosm of what Christendom is and what it means and what it's like to live for 3 days with Christians in that form of pilgrimage, and then have the glorious traditional Latin Mass at Chartres. This is a life-changing event. It was for me. I think Mary and some of her aunt, I think she would agree with me, that it's life-changing for almost everybody who takes part in it, which is why I've done it for 30 some odd years now, because I want to help. But the really interesting thing about that is then, and you'll see this during this pilgrimage, the U.S. flag has got the Sacré-Cœur on it. All the French flags have got the Sacré-Cœur. Well, where does that come from? That comes from the Vendée. The Vendeans didn't lose the war. I just walked a pilgrimage with them. 20,000 of them. The sons and daughters of the Vendée, right? So you have this incredible sign. I think it's coming right from God to stay strong, keep the faith, don't be deceived, don't be fooled. It's all fake news. Don't worry about the world's doing. Just do what you were put on this earth to do. Know, love, and serve God. That's why you're here. And there's nothing the revolution can do then, 250 years ago, or now, to change that, no matter what. That's what we do. And so when you see it, the human consolation of just knowing that there are so many hundreds of thousands of people now, hundreds and hundreds of priests were at this pilgrimage. I'm not exaggerating. I don't know, 400 priests, many bishops, the bishop, everybody there. All this Catholic revival is happening right before our eyes. And then you couple that with what we're seeing culturally, like with Candace Owens, and these people are waking up and saying, no, we want to go back to the real. We want to go back to Catholicism, the real thing. And I don't know. I just think that the Chartres pilgrimage is such an incredible, Archbishop Fulton Sheen made this statement back in 1972 in Raleigh, North Carolina, at a conference, where he was saying, stop whining about how bad things are, in the church. Yeah, things are really bad in the state. Things are really bad right now in the church as well. The church is suffering. Holy Mother Church is suffering. What are you going to do? Leave her? You're going to leave your mother when she's suffering, when she's in chains? Of course not. So he makes this beautiful point where he says, your time is not so special. He says, the church has always been coming out of a tomb. Isn't that interesting? He says, there would be no Easter Sunday if there hadn't been a Good Friday. There will be no halo of holiness without the crown of thorns. So he said, the church is always being persecuted. She's always coming out of it. She's rising again, coming out of the tomb, rising again, and she will rise again now. So I'm thinking to myself, this moment for all of us, this is not a time for us to retreat or to decide that there's no point in fighting back. We talked about the movie that just came out about Charette. We wrote this book. We published this book. Michael Davis, this is the book about the Vendée. And this was 20 years ago. So the stories are coming back about the Vendée. We went to Nantes, to St. Clement in Nantes for Mass last Sunday. The place is packed out. I couldn't believe it. This is the Fraternity of St. Peter's Church in Nantes. We walk inside. We actually took video of it. There were, I would say, hundreds of children, little kids, in this packed out church where the Fraternity of St. Peter has a Latin Mass every Sunday. We had just come from the Puy de Fou, something called the Puy de Fou. You contacted me about this movie about General Charette. And to conquer or to die is basically the last words of Charette. We're going to fight or we're going to die trying. And that movie comes from the Puy de Fou production. Puy de Fou is a 500-acre Disney, like a theme park. It's the third most popular park in France after Disneyland and Disney World, unfortunately. But what this place is the vision of a man named Philippe de Villiers, who is intimately connected with the Chartres pilgrimage. He started this thing back in 1989. I'll just cut to the chase. I don't want to waste your time here. But he started this thing, which is a Catholic theme park. Millions of visitors come every year. And do you know what he does when he brings these people in? He has hotels, everything. It's a huge place. He retells the true story of Christianity. He shows, for example, I was amused in my hotel at the Puy de Fou, in the throne room, the toilet. On the wall, instead of some promotion for what you're going to eat tonight at dinner, is the whole story of the baptism of Clovis. So every single aspect of this place is reteaching and retelling the true story of Christianity. It reaches millions of visitors per year. That's the third most popular theme park in France. Traditional Catholics. And I was reminded, I said, I want to go back home and say to people, tell the people about the Puy de Fou. I don't know if you can see any of these images on the screen now, but there's just this massive spectacle going all the way back to the persecution of Christians in the Colosseum, all the way up to Clovis, and then they retell the entire true story of the Vendée. And I think that that's the spirit that we need to have. Go tell the real story, because we have the best stories. Tell the true stories. That movie that we mentioned, the story of Charette, took France by storm. They're going to release it with an English dubbing here in the States, hopefully over the next year. And the reason that's so important is because there was a massive effort on the part of the revolution to cover it all up, to make sure nobody ever heard the story of the Vendée. Now, in God's providence, the story of the Vendée is taking the world by storm. There's a massive sort of restoration movement going on. And when I talk about this Puy de Fou, it's if you can go spend 2 or 3 days there with your family. It's one of the most wonderful and magnificent spectacles I've ever seen in my life, where you have actual reenactments of chariot races and the stormings of castles and all of this wonderful fun thing. But what people don't realize is as they bring their families and watch this, they are being indoctrinated, in the true sense of that word, doctrine, indoctrinated in Catholicism, in Christianity. And I can think of and then you spin from there into the Chartres pilgrimage, which is this year, was covered by the equivalent of Fox News. They showed up on Pentecost Sunday in a field with 20,000 young people going to a Latin Mass, and they live streamed the entire traditional Latin Mass. And they said that this is most likely the largest televised audience of a Latin Mass since the Second Vatican Council. Now, I would ask you, why at this particular time does the equivalent of Fox News, called C News, why do they show up and live stream a Latin Mass like this? In other words, I think there's every reason to be very, very hopeful right now, prayerfully hopeful, and to get over ourselves a little bit, that this is the apocalypse and there's no reason to fight. Like you just showed the images of the Eucharistic processions going all across the country now. There's an awakening going on, friends, and what we need to have the courage and the faith and the charity and, most importantly, the supernatural virtue of hope to get engaged and to continue to fight. Because remember, I'll leave you with this thought. When Charette, the Charette de la Country, the king of the Vendée, when he leads the fight, remember, he was just a military man. He was a Navy man. The peasants of the Vendée literally had to drag him from under his bed and say, we need leadership. You got the chops and the skills. We need you. He finally reluctantly agrees to do this for them, to lead them. And so he does. And he's very successful early on, of course, but they're up against regular troops, and it was inevitable that they were going to lose. And he always knew that militarily there wasn't much of a chance, but he does it anyway. My point, and I'll leave you with this, is that after this incredible campaign, where he goes from tens of thousands of troops, they've all been whittled down. Some of them are afraid. Some of them are exhausted. Most of them are dead. He's left with just a handful of guys, of his most loyal soldiers and lieutenants. And that's when the revolutionaries, Les Bleus, the soldiers from Paris, that's when they offer him this deal. They say, if you will lay down your sword right now, we will give you all your freedom that you want, including your religious freedom. They said, you can go back to practicing your old faith. You can have your non-juring priest. You can have your Latin Mass. You know what he tells them? No, absolutely not. I am here to defend the kingship of Jesus Christ. I will never trade my personal security or liberty for that. I will die fighting you. And then he's got this beautiful statement where he's talking to his men shortly before he died, before he was executed. And he said, we are the youth of God, gentlemen. We have always been the youth of God because we have the faith, because we believe. We will always be young. And he says, what do they have? What does the revolution have? They have nothing. They have nothing but old, as old as the devil, he says. This is as he's going to die, And so the beautiful, it was an execution, but you could describe it as a martyrdom too, because he refused he laid down his life for his faith, for his country, for his fellow men. He goes to confession for 2 hours. He went to confession to a juring priest, a guy who had signed a deal with the revolution. But just to be sure, he also made it so there was a non-juring priest in a window as he walks toward his execution place, who also gives this beautiful man, absolution on the way to be executed. He arrives at the place of execution. He requests the honor of being able to tell the firing squad himself to fire the volley because he was a military man and he was not afraid to die. And then he recites the act of contrition out loud in front of everybody, points to his chest, and he says, here's where you must fire, you must aim to kill a brave Catholic man. And then he lowers his head, 5 volleys, drops him, and he died. And he was 33 years old. So that's a story. He's like the king of the Vendée. This is the spirit. This is the spirit. You asked originally, why concentrate on the Vendeans? It's because of that. Because we need men. We need people who are courageous soldiers of Jesus Christ, who are willing to stand up no matter what happens. Like we just saw with this Harrison Butker, this football player. Just stand up and speak the truth, and you could change the world. But we need to be inspired. And the story of the Vendée does that in spades. If you take some time to study it, now you start watching these films that are coming out, teach your children, tell them the stories of what happened, of the heroes of the Vendée. And then you factor in the providence of God. God's going to win in the end. We already know that. I think that this is absolutely no time for us to even consider backing down, much less despair. This is the moment to strike and strike hard. Please God, it's going to continue. The momentum is going to continue because it's a beautiful time. This is not a time for us to think about the horrors of our situation, in my opinion. I really don't think it's even time to think about just the obligation of what we're confronted with. What is our obligation before God and history and man? You know what? I firmly believe this with all my heart, that if we do this right, someday they might be telling our story just like we're still telling the Vendée story. Maybe we get to finish the story of the Vendée. What a beautiful way to give our lives, to finish that story. So I think we should be telling our children, our young people especially, think about this as absolutely, hands down, the greatest honor of your life. God, for whatever reason, has given us the grace to see what needs to be done, the hope and the love and the charity to want to do it. This is a huge, huge honor to be standing on the shoulders of these giants and to see what we can do to proclaim the kingship of Christ and to maybe make a better tomorrow, but certainly to let history show, that the revolution never got us. That's what every martyr in history did. Right before he dies, he looks at all the people who are spectators, his friends, his sons, his daughters, his parents, his friend, everybody, who are all gathered around. And what does he do? He says a Te Deum like the Carmelites did. He says, long live Christ the King. You know why he's doing that? He's doing it, first of all, for his soul. But secondly, he's telling every one of them, he's given them the best, the most beautiful gift that he can give them. He's saying, they didn't get me. I still believe. And that, if we can send a message like that all the way to the end of our lives, the revolution failed, it didn't get us, we still believe in God, we still proclaim the social reign of Jesus Christ no matter what, that, my friends, is a life well spent.